Hello everyone! Welcome to my channel. I'm Centra, I'm caffeinated, my skin is clear, my crops are watered, a cat is curled up in my lap, and I'm really excited to share with you my first proper video. My channel focuses on character gameplay design in League of Legends, and today we're looking at Ahri. She's one of League's oldest champions, but in spite of this, her kit has stayed mostly the same, so I thought she'd be a great introduction for what I'm talking about here. I'll cover her patch history, the logic behind the changes she's received in the past, and then get into her gameplay design using the 5 core pillars as a guide. Gameplay satisfaction, thematic resonance, skill expression, fairness to play against, and uniqueness. That being said, don't expect all that I talk about to relate to the 5 pillars. Gameplay design is a complex topic, and I'd bore myself to tears if all I did was stick to a rubric and assign a champion a grade at the end. Rather, I'll conclude the video by saying what I think the champions should receive based on my analysis. Please remember that all I share here is subjective information. It's colored by my own views and opinions and is by no means perfect. That being said, I think it's worth sharing still, and I want to hear more in the comments about how you'd analyze Ahri. Alright, let's get right into it. Ahri was released into League of Legends way back in 2011, and to be honest, her kit hasn't changed much. Starting with her base kit, Ahri's passive was called Soul Eater before turning into Essence Theft in a hotfix patch. At a basic level, she got stacks for hitting things, and at a max of 9 stacks, she got a heal. Not too different from base, although she stacked by hitting champions, not by killing minions and monsters. And instead of getting a flat heal, she got Spell Vamp on her next spell cast instead. Her Q, Orb of Deception, is the same. No, really, it's functionally exactly the same, just with different numbers. Magic damage going out, true damage coming back. Her W, Foxfire, was pretty similar in function too, but it didn't give base movement speed. It also didn't do reduced damage to the same target though, but its targeting UI was bad enough that didn't really matter much. Her charm's infamous Dash Interrupt was not in the game for a long time, but otherwise it's the same as now. Her ultimate, Spirit Rush, has one big difference. It didn't get dash resets. It was just the 3 dashes and little flames on each one. Having read through Ahri's patch notes and seen the reworks myself, I'd argue that this Ahri is actually more similar to today's than some of her reworked iterations, but it was by no means perfect. For starters, her passive's magic vamp was very problematic, and it needed some quality of life updates desperately, because it would activate on cast, not on hit. Sometimes Ahri could hit literally nothing and spend all of her passive stacks, losing them in the process and having to poke champions to get them back. Other times, she got a really thick minion wave with 1 orb and got an ungodly amount of healing back. Additionally, Foxfire seems kinda useless. It was certainly fine by old League standards, but nowadays it's kinda weird to have 2 buttons dedicated to only dealing damage, especially when one is far more useful than the other. That being said, this is a pretty solid kit otherwise, and it didn't receive any form of a rework for 2 years. Speaking of which, her first mini rework that she got was in patch 3.13. The biggest change was that Ahri Charm increased her damage dealt to the enemy for a while. This put a heavier focus on Ahri's Burst Mage playstyle, making her hit her charm to do significant damage, especially since they nerfed her base damage on W and R to compensate. Beyond that, her passive lost the spell vamp, and instead healed a flat amount for each champion hit by her next spell. I looked up the old patch notes for these, and to my pleasant surprise, the writer that made these patch notes was very thorough in their reasoning for why. Let me read this out for you. Ahri is a champion with a lot of strengths and few weaknesses, given her high versatility and reliability, so she can consistently apply a lot of pressure on her opponents from relative safety. Ahri's strengths should be better defined than they currently are. These changes give Ahri players, and her opponents, clear areas of mastery that differentiate the good Ahris from the great Ahris. Our core focuses are 1. Make Ahri's default lane patterns more clear, so both Ahri and her opponents can make plays around them. 2. Make Ahri's all-in gameplay more closely tied with landing Charm, to establish Charm as Ahri's, quote, Kiss of Death ability that needs to be avoided, as well as lower her threat presence while Charm is on cooldown. 3. Keep Ahri's core gameplay intact while trimming away strength from the low gameplay patterns that don't feel rewarding. If you're reading this the same way that I did, then this is pretty clearly a nerf. Several base damage numbers and AP ratios went way down, so she can't kill anyone without Charm anymore. This Ahri was still quite playable, however, and it's all thanks to Deathfire Grasp, our lord and savior. One of League of Legends' strongest items ever, and a requirement on basically every burst mage before its removal in patch 5.2. What a coincidence too, because that was also when Ahri got her second mini rework. The big change was, of course, the revert to her charm's damage amp, but don't worry, we haven't seen the last of her yet. She also got a new movement speed boost while her orb was traveling, and this little rework is where we get a closer look to what Ahri is today. As Riot Pwif put it in the patch 5.2 notes, Ahri is an ultra-mobile kite mage. For over 3 years, Ahri was pretty stable. Some balance changes here, a few bug fixes in a row, and then if I just keep scrolling and... aha! Here, patch 8.8, Ahri's first major rework. Her old passive was changed and moved to her Q. Now only her Q can proc the heal. She has a whole new passive called Vestayan Grace. If she hits champions with spells twice, she gets a movement speed boost. This is where the bonus movement speed on her Q went, as they wanted to make Ahri a little less safe, since before she could just Q the air in front of her and get the speed buff. Her charm damage buff is back, and Foxfires now target charmed targets first. The goal of this rework was to focus in on Ahri's roaming burst mage / assassin playstyle, which was pretty popular at the time, and in return make her more punishable in lane by nerfing her access to free movement. Her Q gave her movement speed regardless of whether it hit anyone or not, so using Q Ethiopian Era was a valid strategy to escape ganks and kite. These changes focus on her popular playstyle and cut out some of what makes her difficult to counter. Fair changes all around. In patch 9.14, Ahri's charm got the ability to cancel dashing champions on hit. Then, in 10.18, she got some reverts. Essence Theft came back as her only passive, with Vestayan Grace dead and gone, and no longer linked to her Q. They also gave her movement speed boost back, but on her Foxfires, not her orb. Her Foxfires also now deal bonus damage to low health minions, and honestly, I was really happy when these buffs happened because her Foxfire felt like a terribly weak ability for a long time. Finally, patch 12.3, we landed Ahri's Midscope update, which, balance tweaks aside, is the Ahri we see today. Charm's damage boost was once again removed. Her passive now stacks on minions killed with a one-time flat heal when she hits 9 stacks. Also, most importantly, her ultimate now gets a dash reset on champion kill, which has added way into that old fantasy of the ultra-mobile kite mage. There have been bug fixes, balance changes, and later than that a whole ASU, or Art and Sustainability update. But this was the last major gameplay change that Ahri has received in her, 13 to 14 year long League of Legends career. For what Ahri succeeds at design-wise, I think she has a very fluid and harmonious kit, and she delivers pretty well on her themes as both a spirit magic user and as a hunting fox. She has very flowy mobility and ethereal feeling visual and sound design that gives her abilities a dreamlike quality. Her general safety, both in lane and in teamfights, also makes her a cozy character to play. At the same time, her constant mobility also lets players periodically give in to something of a hunting instinct. When she uses ult and all her tails light up, she's on the prowl, and she doesn't let her prey get away easily. It gives some exciting moments to playing Ahri, which I like. I'd also argue that despite her plain exterior, Ahri's gameplay identity is quite unique. The only mage that has comparable mobility to Ahri is LeBlanc, and sure, there are parallels, but LeBlanc's mobility is all on a few long dashes, making her better for hard diving a target and escaping just as fast. Think like what Zed or Camille have. Ahri's mobility is multiple smaller bursts, with a movement speed buff and several short resetting dashes, which is better for keeping a target that she's fighting at her ideal range, like Callista or Fiora. In this way, Ahri is truly one of a kind, but she isn't perfect. Ahri reaches out to a lot of new players with an appealing aesthetic and a straightforward kit, but she gets kinda boring if you try to one-trick her, and it shows in her broader player base. Broad player base, meaning that her pick rate is spread out across a lot of different people playing her. Emphasis on different here, because it means that few people dedicate lots of time to mastering Ahri. Her spells are fast and have generous hitboxes, so her combo and abilities don't feel hard to land reliably, and while previous iterations of Ahri would punish her very severely for missing her charm, the Ahri of today does not. She can keep up a lot of damage throughout a fight between her low Q cooldown and her ultimate resets, but her burst isn't as satisfying as a proper burst mage's or assassin's, nor is her DPS as high as that of a battle mage's. Also, while Ahri doesn't feel terribly unfair to play against, she is really, really safe, and that can make her really hard to fight against. Her passive gives her some valuable lane sustain to help her survive poor trades, doesn't take a lot of AP for her to outshove lane against other mages either. Her high mobility lets her dodge skill shots a lot, and her charm can shut down dives really hard. This is actually what makes her so incredible in high elo and pro play, as this multi-layered safety makes her the ideal blind pick. Overall, if I'm being completely honest, Ahri's fine. She's the 5th highest presence mid laner in pro between 30 and 40% presence at the time of writing, which is a solid presence but not meta defining. On ladder, she's slightly above the average win rate at every elo too. While she's easy to play and learn, she has enough skill shots in her kit for bad players to suck at her, so she isn't a noob stomper, and at the same time, while her kit isn't conducive to hard carrying, she has a solid set of tools to be a useful, valuable mage, so she doesn't fall off in higher ranks either. Her play rate is super high, and that's to be expected. She's straightforward to play and has a lot of neutral matchups, so she's a safe blind pick. If you want to really dedicate yourself to a harder mid lane champion and master them, you'll likely find more success with them. And Ahri can stay in your back pocket as a reliable pocket pick. I wouldn't want every champion to be designed like Ahri, but I like that Ahri is. And that's Ahri. If you have any thoughts to share about Ahri, please leave a comment with your own insights. Similarly, if you have any comments on the video itself, be it my editing, breakdowns of my analysis, etc., I'm open to feedback. I don't have anything like a schedule set up right now, but I'll just be working on videos as I go because it's summer, I don't have school yet, so I got time. Alright, have a good day, y'all. Cheers!